How's everybody today? Pete here, Spawn Fly Fish, and of course, it is time for playing on a theme. And so, in one of our recent videos, we touched on the low fat minnow from Uncle Cheech over at Fly Fish Food. And of course, now it is time to customize that fly into something a little bit different than you may have seen previously. So, getting started here, we do have the Ahrex SA254 in a size 2. For the bead, this is a 7/32 or 5.5 millimeter Chartreuse slotted tungsten bead. And of course, to hold everything nicely in place, we have 6 wraps of 0.025 lead-free wire. And at this point, let's go ahead and use some of this 6/0 Chartreuse thread to solidify those weighted wire wraps. And then of course we're going to come back down the shank ever so slightly, beginning down that curved portion, so we're just behind the hook point and barb, and then that's going to be our indicator of where we want this fly to begin. So some of you might know it is chum season here in Southwest Washington. The rivers have a bunch of chum in them. And if you've not caught chum on the fly, you're missing out. It is simply a blast and something you all should experience at least once. And if you do, well, there's a good chance you'll want to do it many, many times. So get things started. We're just going with some white Marabou here, and not a huge chunk by any means, because keep in mind this fly, right, has a built-in taper, and so as we go up, the taper grows. And this back portion is absolutely meant to slick down and really get to be the pointed section of that taper. So roughly a little bit longer than the hook shank, like so. Transfer to the off tying hand and simply tie that down. So if you remember last time, we tied a little nondescript rainbow / chum fry, and now we're tying the chum fly. So you see how things tend to work out a little bit weird that way, and we'll use it. So now for this, I just trimmed those butts right where they're going to line up and touch with the backside of their weighted wire wraps. And of course, all of this in the sake of an even underbody. And now that we are back to our tail, let's get going with a little bit of Tinsel Chenille, and in this case, simply pearl. And again, a brilliant design that leaves a translucent body or underbody. And this is part of why it works, because if you've seen fry and little minnows in the water, like, they're not very colored up, right? They're very translucent, see-through, nothing to them except protein, and the fish know, hey, there's a good meal right there. So let's go about 4 wraps and tie that off. Of course, this is slightly different from that last one, right? This is a pretty good size hook compared to that. I think we tied it on a size 8 last time. Now we're on a size 2, so a little bit different. Keep it in mind. That's going to change your proportions, and so an extra wrap here and there, a little bit bigger chunks of material, and you're right there. All right, so now we're going to get our next bit of Marabou. And since the second chunk of Marabou needs to be just a little bit bigger than our first, we're actually going to use 2 colors instead of doing one big chunk of one color. And this is a good way to get you used to measuring, is my section actually a little bit bigger than the previous and all that good stuff. The only way to do it is experience. So sit down and tie a pile of them. So here's our next color. We've got some UV fluorescent yellow Marabou. So you could, call it chartreuse yellow. Anything like that is going to be great. And we're going to come in right on top here, keeping in mind this is jig style. But we don't want these fibers to reach all the way back. We want it to be just slightly of reaching all the way back. And again, like a millimeter or 2 is all, like, it's not a ½ inch difference by any means, but it does need to be there. All right, so before we get into too much trouble with these tag ends or butts here, let's go ahead and trim those out. And again, I'm just going to cut right against the backside of my weighted wire. Now I come through and use bodkin, fingers, whatever, just kind of give that a fluff forward, and it'll be much easier splitting those fibers around the hook point like so. And once you've done that, doesn't matter if you grab it from top or bottom, just that pinch is the key, and hold it in place as you finish wrapping down. So now I can come in and split those around a little bit better, since we are coming in with another color. So for me, that's the easiest way. Just go ahead and tuck it under, and then we're back in business. So now I'm coming in with Chartreuse green versus Chartreuse yellow. I don't need as much as I used on that yellow, because again, that was almost even to our white portion. So anything I add on now will of course give it that little bump, so that it's a little bit more, if you will, than the first bump. All right, going right on top of our yellow with the Chartreuse green. And let me just find some of these fibers here and make sure I'm not going past that yellow. Is it the end of the world if it does? No, it's a fly. You know what we do with flies? Toss them in the water, and we feed them to toothy critters. So if having one bit or one piece of flash or marabou or any of that is going to ruin your day, don't let it. Just improve before you start the next one, right? That's what we're doing here. We really don't always learn from our successes, but man, if we're not learning from our mistakes, then we're just going to repeat them. So learn from it, move on, and tie the next one a little better. That's all you can do. All right, pull all that marabou back. This is going to be sick. So a lot of times when we're fishing for these chum, like I'm a huge fan of using these big flowy flies, right? Articulated, you name it. But there are times, especially with the water condition, where they're not so relaxed. They might have, you know, some other issues with low water. They feel pressure, whatever. They can see some predators, and so they don't necessarily want to chase something down, so to speak. And at that point, having a smaller profile fly can make a huge difference. So this is going to be my smaller profile fly on those clearer, lower water days when those chum don't really want to chase something down and smack it as much as they do on like a cloudy, overcast day, and when there's a little bit more water and all that good stuff. Now, this, again, we don't want to overpower the coloration of this fly, except keep in mind, like we're fishing a very, very bright chartreuse fly here. So is there any way to overpower it? Probably not. Just put all that beautiful color and fun stuff in there that you can. All right, all that's tied in. Pretty close to done here. So as you can see, getting a lot going on, and I've mentioned it in the last time we tied the low fat. I guess one of those flies is maybe the ultimate fly that looks like nothing until it's completely finished and actually saturated and wet, and then you just go, oh, I'm pretty good at this fly tying ding, and that's important. So let's finish this fly here. So for the head, we do need a head that pushes water and creates that taper in the fly, makes everything make sense. So I'm just going on the underside here with some laser dub in white. And after 2 wraps here, I'm going to check the sides and make sure that it is even on both sides, covering the bottom portion of that hook. And again, in order for success on veiling heads, especially with laser dub like this, is to make sure that the thread is pushing that material all the way against the bead. It's not how far back you're tying it. That's really secondary. It's how far forward you get it pushed against that bead. And the more firmly you get that seated, the better it's going to pull back and give you that true kind of tapered head. All right, so now we've got some chartreuse laser dub here, and of course chartreuse green going in on the top for our dorsal side. Same kind of idea, couple really loose soft wraps, and then manipulate that laser dub so that it is going to touch where the white laser dub sits and both sides. Now I'll create a little head space here so that it does have room to veil back. And then once again, make sure this isn't moving your dub, but you do need that thread wrap all the way against the bead. And if you do that properly, when you pull that back, See, it's not pulling away from the bead, it's staying right home where we want it to. Just kind of get that over the hook point and solidify. And we can rotate, and we will do the same exact thing now with the white underneath and get it tied in. So at this point, go ahead and check your sides, make sure that they line up so that my side looks like your side and all that good stuff. And since it does, and I know yours does at home, we're just going to go ahead and whip finish. So put a couple of them in here, and I'm going to do the eyes the same way as I did last time, meaning I will get them on so that you can see what it'll look like. I won't use the resin and all that until the fly dries back out, and so that will be off screen, but at this point you guys kind of know how the ideal works. And not that it's ideal, it is the deal of the eyes. There we go, thread's been cut. And at this point, let's go ahead and pop this out. We'll get it wet. You'll see the profile of this fly, and we'll pop a couple eyes on just so you get that full finished effect. I've got some kind of fiber there. There we go. All right, enough yapping, right? Let's see just how much pretty color is going to come out of this guy. Oh yeah, it's already looking pretty slick. Takes a lot to saturate these, so be patient. And again, don't get to the river, tie one on and just start casting. Take your time, saturate this fly. And then when you do cast it, it is ready for action. I'm just trying to squeeze out a little bit of the excess water here, so forgive me. And we'll pop that back in like so. So there we have it, folks. A lot of chartreuse in a nice little kind of chartreuse to hot yellow to white phase. And then of course this beautiful taper that is going to push some water at the head and leave a small profile in the back. That is what we like. Again, amazing pattern from Cheech over at Fly Fish Food. The guy's a legend. You know who he is. I guarantee you do. Can't miss that beard too. All right, so here we've got some spawn eyes. These are 6 millimeter in silver black, and whatever eye floats your boat, by all means, that's what you should be putting on there. Again, I'll come in with resin on top, bottom, 2 times with a little thin, and then a coat of flow over the whole deal, including the eyes, and it'll be tack free and ready for success. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please remember to hit like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you on that chum water.